I will say this, okay? The Democrats did decide to devote a little bit of token time to honoring police officers. They did do that. Remember how earlier this week they devoted so much time to the Black Lives Matter movement? The people on the floor were chanting, Black Lives Matter. And they brought out the mothers of black men and women who have died at the hands of police. Okay, not that we don't grieve for those mothers, of course, but this was all about look how black communities in this country are being victimized by the police. I mean, that's what the message basically was, and honoring the Black Lives Matter movement. I want to remind everybody, the Black Lives Matter movement, look at the things that they chant at their rallies. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. They chant, when do we want, or what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now. You had that Black Lives Matter protest organizer at a rally just the other day that was, you can see her on the video yelling at white people to go to the back of the crowd. Okay? No, this is for black people and brown people. Black people, brown people up front. White people in the back. Somebody said, what about media? White media in the back too. White people go to the back. Rallies chanting blank cops, blank the cops, okay, the F word, that type of thing. This is what Black Lives Matter does. Yet they've been invited multiple times to the White House to be honored and given credibility in that way. And they were offered a huge validation from the stage this week of the Democratic Party. Well, there was a lot of pushback. And conservatives were pointing out, isn't it amazing that the Democratic Party wouldn't even have any grieving family members of slain cops? Well, they corrected that last night. They're like, okay, let's have our token little moment where we honor the police. And they did do that, and I was glad to see it. I would have liked to have seen it last a little bit more than 5 minutes, okay? I would have liked to have seen them devote as much time as they did to the Black Lives Matter movement earlier in the week. But at least they did do something. They had the parents and a wife of 3 slain police officers. So I'm glad that they did this. I just wish they would have spent more time at it. But here's what's amazing to me. As soon as they're done with this moment, and now they're on to the rest of the program, guess who came on after this moment? Reverend William Barber, president of the North Carolina NAACP, and he stirred up so much hatred and animosity in that audience, but he did it in a really twisted way. He was quoting scripture, supposedly to support bigger government, redistribution of wealth, LGBTQ causes and everything. And then, here's what he said about police and the Black Lives Matter movement. He said, quote, when we hear the legitimate discontent of Black Lives Matter, we are embracing our deepest moral values and reviving the heart of our democracy. And then people end up cheering. Let's stop and think about this a moment, folks. This was right after the little token honoring of our police officers. You bring a man up who then says Black Lives Matter is legitimate, saying, quote, when we hear the legitimate discontent of Black Lives Matter, it's like, come on up, grieving family members of slain police officers. We'll give you your moment. Okay, get off stage. Now we're going to bring people up to basically spit in your face and say that the Black Lives Matter movement is legitimate. And then saying legitimizing Black Lives Matter is, quote, embracing our deepest moral values and reviving the heart of our democracy. He also went on to say, quote, when I hear Hillary's voice and positions, I hear and I know that she is working to embrace our deepest moral values, and we should hear her. All right, here's this reverend, this African-American reverend, saying that Hillary Clinton's positions bring about our deepest moral values in this country. So here's my question for this reverend. You mean like abortion? Are these the deepest moral values that you're talking about? Is this the scriptural references that you're talking about? Hillary Clinton, how rabidly pro-abortion she is, on the very night that the president of NAACP is up there talking about how I got my abortion and everybody cheers. Are these the deepest moral values you're talking about? And not to mention the fact, He's an African American. He's a state chapter head of the NAACP, and the abortion industry kills more black babies than white babies in proportion of their population all across America. African Americans make up 12.5% to 13% of the population, but they make up 36 to 38% of the abortions in America, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control themselves. Over 70% of abortion clinics in this country are in black neighborhoods. Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, was a racist who spoke at KKK rallies, who incorporated what she called, quote, the Negro Project for the purpose of, her words, exterminating the Negro population. She referred to black people as human waste and human weeds. And this is who the Democratic Party embraces, Planned Parenthood. And by the way, they're not ashamed of Margaret Sanger. Planned Parenthood's not embarrassed by Margaret Sanger. To this day, they still name their annual award, their highest honor award, the Maggie Award. Margaret Sanger's nickname was Maggie. They named their highest award after Margaret Sanger. They still honor her with the title of their award every year. By the way, one of their recipients for the Maggie Award, Hillary Clinton. And this man's going to get up there as an African American and as a reverend and quote scripture and say that Hillary Clinton's positions are our deepest moral values? Oh, just incredible. Which then brings me to Hillary Clinton. We'll talk about Hillary Clinton's speech next here